In our next section, we're going to discuss subtracting whole numbers. And for this first video, for topic 1, we're going to subtract whole numbers without borrowing. And before we dive in, we have a few definitions. So we have that subtraction is the process of finding the difference between two numbers. Well, that's great, but what does that mean? So subtraction, in another way, is saying, let me click on this. There we go. Another way of saying what subtraction is, it's the process of reducing one number by another number. All right. So you're taking one number and you're reducing it. You're taking something away from it. Okay. And so the more, kind of semi-formal definition is subtraction is the process of finding the difference between two numbers. That is taking one number and reducing it by another. And even further, the answer to a subtraction problem is called the difference. Okay. So you really do need to understand what difference is. It means to take one number and reduce it by another. That's what subtraction is, but the result that you get is the difference itself. Okay. Now, we have two other numbers that are involved with subtraction. One is the minuend and one is the subtrahend. The minuend is the number from which another number is being subtracted. And then the subtrahend is the number that is actually being subtracted from the minuend. So we have an example here. Right here, we have consider 12 minus 8 equals 4. In this example, 12 is the minuend, 8 is the subtrahend. So 12 is the number that's being subtracted from. 8 is being subtracted, so that's the subtrahend, and then 4 is the difference. Okay, so make sure you understand the difference between the three numbers involved with subtraction, but especially understand the definition of the word difference. Okay, so difference is the answer to subtraction. You will certainly see that again. Directions could say find the difference. Word problems could say something about finding a difference. So when you hear the word difference, your brain should automatically think, hey, that's subtraction. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some examples. We are going to start in this first example with looking at subtracting without borrowing. We'll talk about borrowing in the next video. So first of all, we have, for part 1, we have 597 minus 341. Well, what we want to do is write this vertically. Just like with addition, students and people in general tend to understand subtraction better when you subtract vertically. It just makes it easier for our brains to do this. So we have 597. From that, we want to subtract 341. You want to line these numbers up on the right-hand side, column by column. And then you just subtract one column, subtract the next column, and so on until you're done. So for our first column, you always start at the right and work left. We have 7 minus 1. Well, that's just 6. 9 minus 4 is 5. And 5 minus 3 is 2. So we would say the difference between 597 and 341 is 256. Now, the cool thing in math is we have these operations being addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Those are kind of the basic ones we'll start with. We have these things called inverse operations. So inverse operations are two operations that undo each other. Well, it just so happens that addition and subtraction undo each other. They're inverse operations. What that means for us is we can check a subtraction answer by adding. We can check an addition answer by subtracting. So if you wanted to check your work with subtraction, you would take your difference, so 256, you would add what we call the subtrahend, so 341. And when you add those, you should get the minuend as your result. So we line these up vertically. We add column by column. 6 plus 1 is 7. 5 plus 4 is 9. 2 plus 3 is 5. And you can see that we did, in fact, get the minuend here. So you can always use subtraction to check an addition answer. You can always use addition to check a subtraction answer. Okay. So you don't always have to do that, but just know that you can. So if you ever get an answer and you're like, oh, that feels weird, check it. Just see if it works. Okay. Also, you need to make sure that you can add and subtract single digit numbers in your head. Okay. Let's move on to the next example. We have 4,521. From that, we want to subtract 411. So I right-hand align the numbers and then I subtract column by column. So 1 minus 1 is 0. 2 minus 1 is 1. 5 minus 4 is 1. And then right here we have this 4 in 4,521. There's nothing to subtract from it, so think almost like subtracting 0. We just get a 4. And then remember, starting at the right, go back every 3 digits, throw in a comma. So we would say the difference between 5,421 and 411 is 4,110. Okay. Third example here, we have 78,965. From that, we want to subtract 8,743. So again, we right-hand align and then we just subtract column by column. So 5 minus 4 is 2, or 5 minus 3 is 2. I don't know where the 4 came from. 6 minus 4 is 2. 9 minus 7 is 2. Go ahead and throw in your comma. 8 minus 8 is 0, and then there's nothing to subtract from the 7, so we just bring it down. So we would say the difference between 78,965 and 8,743 is 70,222. One more for this video. We have 36,515 minus 24,308. So we write that vertically. Let me fix that. So we have 36,519. We want to subtract 24,308. Right-hand align, subtract column by column. 9 minus 8 is 1. 1 minus 0 is 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. Go ahead and throw in your comma. 6 minus 4 is 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. So the difference between these two numbers is 12,211. So that's as basic as subtraction can get. Make sure, again, that in your head you can add and subtract single-digit numbers. That's going to be really important. When we look at the next video, we'll talk more about borrowing. That's where subtraction gets a little bit more difficult. And please understand, I talked about this a good bit when we were talking about addition. There's a time and a place for a calculator. Doing just subtraction of two numbers, that's something you need to be able to do on paper. There will be a time and place in class where I want you to show that you can do this without a calculator. So there will be assessments where you have to show that you can do basic addition, basic subtraction without a calculator. There are times where that calculator is great, it's wonderful, it's absolutely acceptable. This wouldn't be it. You need to know how to do something like this by hand, okay?